I showed up each and every time for my boys. I did not miss a race nor a performance. Apparently, Lorraine broke every traffic light on the way to the hospital. I was afraid to sleep. As tired as I was afraid to close my eyes. Honestly, I was so scared I couldn't think straight. And I said to her, sis, whatever decision you decide to make, I am good with it. But the only thing that I can possibly think about was my children. What will happen to my children? How will they take this news?
Lateisha, thank you so much for joining us today. I am really heartened and excited by the conversation that I know we'll have today, and I'm sure many others who will watch this will be equally as excited and inspired. Tell us who Lateisha is on and off the job.
Well, first of all, I'm a mother to two handsome boys, a Mary, who is 19 years old, and Aiden, who will be 10 years old later this year. I'm a very hands-on mother. I love playing and spending time with my boys. I take them all over the world. We travel, we go to picnics, we go to the beach, we go to restaurants, and I just enjoy being a mother. I'm also family oriented. I love spending time with my parents, my sisters, and my nieces. And don't get me wrong, I'm also big on my extended family as well. Me and my cousins, we normally go and celebrate each other's birthday at one fancy restaurant or the other. We love to dress up and go and enjoy ourselves. On the job, I love working at the commission. Commission is dear to my heart. And in my current role in the AML unit, I love the complaint space. Anti-money laundering is dear to my heart. And I enjoy what I do every day. I have an excellent team, and we support each other during all of our day-to-day activities.
Wonderful. Lateisha, you mentioned that, of course, you're a mom, and I know that that's such an important role to play.
Yes.
Tell us what it was like when you learned for the first time that you were going to be a mother.
It was excitement, but I was also scared because I was like, oh my God, I'm 21 years old. I'm still at university. I'm working, and I'm about to be a mother. When Amari was born, he was actually born on a Good Friday. And I mean, I was like, it's a good day to have a baby. And my parents, they were extremely supportive. They supported me in everything. So the fear that I had at first, that turned into joy. And, you know, I didn't make the mistakes that I anticipated I would make because my parents were very, very, very supportive.
Tell us then what the experience was like the second time around. How the two experiences compared.
That was a very difficult pregnancy because I had a Mary to take care of. And then obviously I was very ill during that pregnancy. And it was a bit difficult, but it made me so strong because even though I was trying to be there for Amari, I still had to take care of myself. So it taught me a lot of patience. I was able to have a balance. You know, I have to take care of Amari by someone to take care of Aiden, who's growing inside of me. So that experience made me a lot stronger than I really was. That made me the person I am today. Aiden was born, and another piece of me was born inside of my body.
Really? Yes. Over the years, how has your relationship blossomed with your sons? Are you that strict mother? Are you that best friend? Are you that big sister? Are you a mixture of all of them? How would your sons describe your relationship with them?
The thing is, because I have two children at two different ages, there is a 9.5-year gap between my boys. So parenting for my children tends to be, it has its differences because obviously they have different personalities, different interests, different hobbies. So I have to be able to work with both of them at the same time. For Amari, for instance, Amari is a teenage boy. And there are conversations that I would have with him that he may think that's embarrassing, but I still need to be a mother. I love Amari just as much as I love Aiden. And even though, it's difficult sometimes, having to manage and talk to and, take care of a teenage boy, I wouldn't have it any other way. And sometimes he will say, "Mommy, you miserable. Mommy, you got call about this." But I know that he knows that I am only looking out for his best interests. I have his best interests at heart always. And he knows that I love him dearly. Aiden is a mommy's boy. I get so many hugs, so many kisses, so many I love yous. And some mornings I wake up and it's like, "Oh, he got my bed." He creeps into my bed in the dead of the night. And then I find myself, scratching to the end to accommodate him. The joys of motherhood.
I love it. And I'm sure they feel equally as honored to have you as their mom. I am sure about that.
Yes.
So it seems like you've always been very active and involved in their lives. I'm sure you probably were one of these soccer moms, you at the school, if there's anything happening, you're
Definitely,
there, right?
definitely. Yes. I remember one year, Aiden was at nursery school and Amari was at secondary school. And that was the first year that Amari was going to run for his school sports. This sports was being held at the Usain Bolt complex. Aiden was at Maria Holder cheering. And I remember taking a personal day from work. And Amari was in White House and Aiden had to wear African garb. And you should see me. I was at the traffic lights behind Hill, changing from my White House shirt to my African garb to get back to the Maria Holder School just in time for Aiden's performance. I did this 3 times during that day. 3 times.
Whoa.
And I was exhausted, but I had a wonderful day. I showed up each and every time for my boys. I did not miss a race nor a performance.
I love that. So, Lateisha, we're gonna jump now into the day that everything kind of changed for you. So we're talking about Lateisha, the very involved, active mom, one who is always on top of her son's schedules, making sure that she's there and making sure that they're ready and prepared for anything that the day has set. So back in, was it December?
December
of 2022? 2023. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
2023. So literally just the other day. Something happened and things changed. I want you to walk us through that day from the moment that you woke up until where it led you. Tell us a little bit.
December 21st, 2023. That day, to be honest, started like any other normal day. I woke up early, I cooked lunch, I put clothes to wash, and I remember coming back and I sat on the sofa and I had to call my friend Lorraine because she had called the night before and I promised that I would return my call the next day. And during our conversation, we were talking from one thing to the next, and I said, "Lorraine, I don't like how my body feels." And she was like, "How?" I couldn't really explain it, but it felt different. And I remember feeling nauseous. And then I began to throw up. The last thing I heard her said, "I'm coming there now and I'm bringing your parents." I do not remember what happened by the time they got there, but I think they found me on the floor. And Amari had gone off to his little Christmas job, and Aiden was still asleep because it was the Christmas vacation. So technically I was alone. And I remember when my parents came, I remember my mom saying, "Everything is going to be all right." I was between consciousness, in and out of consciousness, going to the doctor. I assume it was the doctor they were taking me to. And I remember hearing my mom praying, and she was praying, and she was praying, "God got this, God got this." And I wasn't as scared because I didn't really know what was going on, but I wasn't that afraid at that point in time. I remember when I got to the doctor, he came out to the car because I was in no position to get out. And I remember he saying to my mom, hospital. I was in and out, so I didn't hear exactly what he said, but I remember hearing the word hospital. You know, when you hear hospital, you get scared. Anyhow, I remember my dad telling me after, apparently Lorraine broke every traffic light on the way to the hospital. And my father said, and she just told me, come, just follow me. And she broke every traffic light. Thankfully, when I got to the hospital, God was on my side. Everything moved like clockwork. People would normally say the hospital takes too long to do this. God was on my side. Everything moved instantly. I remember having a CAT scan. I saw doctors, I saw nurses, everybody was coming to my aid. A few hours later, my mom told me, everybody's praying for me. And she said, the doctors confirmed you suffered a stroke, but we caught it in time and we're going to work and try to, make sure that I'm as comfortable as possible. So I would have been there in the A&E, in the what we call the stat room, for a number of hours. I was afraid to sleep. As tired as I was afraid to close my eyes, because here I was telling myself, I'm not going to open these eyes again if I shut them. My mom was holding my hand because I told her, don't let go. And I remember her saying, we got this, we got this. Everybody praying. And I remember, as tired as I was just trying not to sleep. But then I found myself drifting in and out of sleep. You're fighting sleep. I was fighting sleep. I remember then the doctors came late in the day then, and they said, okay, we have to transfer you to ICU. And we will monitor you for the next few days, and we will see how things are progressing and stuff like that. At that time, my little sister came. She's a nurse. And when my sister came, she had to make choices for me because I was so afraid. I didn't want to make the wrong choice. And because of her medical background, she was in a better position in terms of the mind, because honestly, I was so scared I couldn't think straight. And I said to her, sis, whatever decision you decide to make, I am good with it.
What were some of those choices that she had to make?
The doctors had asked what time. They were trying to get the time frame between when I fell ill and when I reached the hospital. And they had to give me this thing called a thrombolytics that would scatter any blood clots that were on the brain. That would give me a better chance of recovery. But they have side effects. So by the time the doctor spoke to me and my parents and my sister, she was on the phone at the time. And by the time the doctor then spoke to us and I heard all of these side effects, I was like, I don't know if I want this treatment. However, my sister spoke to my mom and I told them, whatever decision you all make, it is good with me. So my sister told the doctor to go ahead and to administer the thrombolytics. So once I had the thrombolytics, I was transferred into the ICU unit where I was closely monitored because of all the side effects that would come with the administration of the thrombolytics. So after I got to the ICU, I was able then to get some rest, and because the medication they gave me, I was really, really tired, and I finally dozed off to sleep. So when you learned that you suffered a stroke, tell us what physical challenges you may have been experiencing at the time, if you had any mobility challenges at that point in time, and also talk us through mentally what was going on. I know you mentioned you were tired and you didn't want to drift off to sleep. Outside of that, what was going on in Lateisha's mind and what was happening physically? Physically, I had lost all movement of my left side. My speech was a bit slurred at first, but thankfully, that didn't last for too long. But my entire left side, I couldn't raise my left hand, I couldn't feel my left foot. The doctors came, they did all the different tests, and that left side was completely dead. It felt as though somebody had 2 bags of cement just rested there, and I was just fighting to try to move it, and they wouldn't move. Mentally, what was going on in my head, I was scared, but the only thing that I can possibly think about was my children. What will happen to my children? How will they take this news? And I know my mom would have been a damn good mom, but there's nobody like your mother. There's nobody to take care of your children like you. And that is when the fear really set in. What will happen? How will my boys take this news?
Right. So then tell us what the experience was like when you had that first interaction with them since the diagnosis was given. You're in the ICU. Were they allowed in? What was that interaction like?
My parents brought Amari to the ICU. And that was very difficult for Amari because 9 months before that period, his best friend, his mom suffered a stroke and passed away on Mother's Day.
Oh, wow.
So for Amari then to see me in this state, it was devastating. I remember him holding my hand and he was trying to talk to me, but his voice was breaking every time. I used to say, "Mommy, you're okay?" All he could do was cry. But at that point in time, that fear, that worry, it turned to determination. I cannot die. I have to get better because my sons are depending on me. Mm-hmm. I was no longer afraid. I was no longer afraid.
I almost feel like I want to cry too. Tell us about Aiden, and was he allowed on the ward?
He came to the ICU for a very brief period because that is a very sterile area. Yes. And my parents were able to convince the nurses to let him see me. And he was brave. The machines, he looked at the different machines. He was trying to ask me what this is for, and everything was beeping at the point in time. So he was a bit concerned. But then he said to me, "Mommy," Mom, which is my mother, they would call her Mom. He said, "Mom told me what happened." And I went on my tablet and I did some research. And I know what happened. I know what you're going through. And at that point in time, I laughed. And I was like, that is Aiden. Aiden researches everything. And it made me laugh. And I said to myself, good. He knows what I'm going through. I don't have to explain it. He knows what is happening, and I know that we will get through this.
Did you have any concern about your ability to bounce back and mother your children in the way that you were used to? Did you have any concerns at all about that?
My first concern was that my children always saw me as that mother who was strong, that mother who was always there, that mother who did everything for them. So at first, obviously because of the fact that I couldn't use the left side, I was like, am I going to be able to do these things to my children in the future? But then I started to, I had a lot of free time to think. And I said to myself, as soon as I am discharged from this hospital, whatever it takes to get back to that mother, I am willing to take. My sister kept mentioning physiotherapy, speech therapy, sea baths, every single thing. And I was just taken in because I promised myself that once I was able to leave this hospital, I was going to do everything humanly possible to make sure that my boys will see me in the future as the mother that they knew in the past.
What is one memorable moment in that entire journey at the hospital while you were there that said to you, I will make it? That one moment that stood out to you that really gave you the drive and the determination to get up out of that hospital bed and to fight to be the Lateisha that you were before, or even beyond that? What was it?
My support system. My support system was big. From my family to my friends to the FSC. Everybody showed up. Every single body showed up. And I had people praying for me that I didn't even know. Every single, even the nurses. And people say nurses are snobby, doctors are snobby, everybody's in a hurry. That medical team was excellent. My support system in terms of my family, my children, my friends, the commission. And that is what I told myself, I cannot disappoint. I know that with this support system, I can go, I can recover well, and I will become the person I was before.
Beautiful. So let's take a minute here to give a shout out to some of the doctors and the nurses at the hospital who treated you so well and ensured that you were able to bounce back. Do you want to mention some of their names?
Sure. Dr. Brown, she was the person that I saw when I went to the hospital. She's the person who was running here wire. She was excellent. I remember she said, I am going to stay here. I know you are scared, but I am not leaving you. And she was excellent. She was supportive. She answered the questions that my parents were asking. At one point, she even held on to my hand because I told her, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to expect. And she was human. She wasn't just a doctor. Right? The nurses on the wards were excellent. I remember when I went to the MICU, the night, Nurse Medford, she really helped me to settle down. I was scared, I was hungry, I was tired. She gave me my first bath, and she kind of helped me to settle down that night because, everything is happening all at once. I was scared, and she kind of helped me to relax a bit that night. She even put on the TV. I didn't watch much TV, but she said, just use the TV to help take your mind off of what's happening for a bit. And the nurses on Ward C6, those nurses were excellent. When I tell you excellent, they were excellent. I can't remember all of the names now, but those nurses looked out for me. And I remember one nurse saying to me, she said, Lateisha, even with this stroke, you are trying to help yourself. And we have other patients in here who have full mobility and they don't want to do nothing. And you there can only use your right side. And here you are helping me doing everything that you have to get done. She said, if all of these patients were like you, I won't have to work so hard. And I smiled and I told her straight, I love to help myself, and just because this happened to me doesn't mean that I will lay down and play dead. That is not me.
Yes. We really want to give a big shout out to the hospital staff. I hope that you're watching this. I hope it gets to you. We really want to appreciate your selfless service. Thank you so much. So you've been in the hospital now. How long were you there?
I spent just over 2 weeks in the hospital.
Okay. So when it got closer to the point of being discharged, talk us through the emotions now. What are you feeling? What is it that you're anticipating? Is there a particular meal you're hoping to go home and have? What is it that's going on in your mind?
When it comes to meals, my mom brought breakfast, she brought lunch, and she brought dinner. My parents made sure that I felt as though I was at home. So meals was not lacking. At one point, the nurses said, boy, they don't left you out. They make sure that you eat. I was excited to go home because the hospital visits with Aiden were quite short given his age. And at that point in time, I really wanted to see my children because that was where I got my strength. That's where I was encouraged, motivated. And Mary would come every evening. He would sit by my bedside and he would talk to me. He would hold my hand before he left each evening. He would say, Mommy, I love you. He would give me a kiss. I cherish those moments. Aiden would come in for about 5 minutes each day. So I really wanted to get home so that I can spend more time with my children.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents had to beg the doctors to let me go home. We had to prove that they had the equipment and the facilities to, manage me while I'm at home. As I said, my sister's a nurse and she had an elderly daycare, so a lot of the equipment that she would have used with the elderly, she still had. So in terms of the handrails for the shower, the bath seat, everything, wheelchair, we were able to get wheelchair, walker. So my parents and my family made sure that at home was ready. And so once the doctors knew that, and we already had physiotherapists lined up. Once the hospital knew that, they were more amenable to letting me go home.
So you're at home now, you've settled back into a familiar space, you have your family around, your friends are visiting, making sure that Lateisha is still smiling as brightly as ever. And then it was soon time for you to begin physiotherapy, I imagine. So what were those first moments like when you had to get out of the wheelchair and do all the different exercises that they would take you through?
Funny enough, I started physio one day after I left the hospital because I told myself, the faster I act, the faster it is for me to recover. I have a better chance at recovery. I did a lot of research, and Warren's physiotherapy clinic was on the lips of every single person to whom I spoke regarding physiotherapy. And my first day at Warren's Physio, I remember coming in through the door, my mom pushing my wheelchair, and obviously I was tired because, having been in the hospital, I was tired. And when I walked through that door and I saw all these smiling faces, I can laugh now, but they told me I looked really miserable. They said, you came in with your face was pushed up. But obviously, going through what I went through, my back was hurting really bad because the hospital bed wasn't as comfortable as I would have hoped. But my parents tried to make it as comfortable as possible. But once I got into the Warren's Physio, my therapist, Javon Mason, I am thankful to Mr. Mason.
Javon, they get yourself Javon.
And he worked with me. It was difficult at first because obviously mobility was a challenge. But once I had my mind made up that this was the way that I was going to what I had to go through in order to make a recovery, my mind was made up. Whatever it was that Javon said I needed to do, I was prepared to do. And we started some stem treatment that would wake up the nerves in my hands and my legs. And it was a bit painful because obviously it has to vibrate and tickle. But once that started, I found that I was able to make some little movements. And what I did also is that everything that they used, all the equipment that they used, I started purchasing. So I would do stuff at home. And my sister, who is a nurse, when she's dealing with me, I'm not her sister. I'm a patient. And some days I didn't want to go to physiotherapy, and she was like, "You want to get better, right?" I was like, "Yeah, well, let me go," right? Some days my sons accompanied me to physio, and that was encouragement for me. That was encouragement. There were other patients there who were at different levels in their recovery as well. And I remember one day this guy came to me. Well, he gestured to me, and I hobbled over to him, and he said to me, "You're always so positive." I don't know. I don't like coming here. I want to get better. I want to drive my truck again. And I said to him, "Mr. Medford, it starts with the mind. You have to want to get better. I want to get better. I have my 2 sons home depending on me. And you have to want to get better in order to get better. That is the first step." And I didn't see Mr. Medford for about 2 weeks. And he was in a wheelchair before. When we spoke, he was in a wheelchair. And I remember one evening I was leaving therapy, and I saw this person coming down the walkway, and it was Mr. Medford, and he was walking with a cane like me. And I was like, "Mr. Medford, where's the wheelchair?" He said, "Lateisha, what you said to me, I took that to heart. And I want to get better." And from then on, we used to encourage each other at therapy. And Mr. Medford has done so much work. He's walking without a cane.
Nice.
And I mean, it's happy to see Mr. Medford. And I was glad that even in my trials, even in my storm, I was able to encourage somebody.
Yes. So over what period of time did you move from being in the wheelchair, coming out of the hospital, to how you are right now, walking without any assistance whatsoever? I mean, y'all should see her. Walking without any assistance. What length of time are we talking about? And what were the different stages that you would have gone through? So from wheelchair to cane, or, you know, talk us
Okay,
through that.
I would have used the wheelchair for probably about 2 weeks. After that, I started to use a walker. I had wheels, I was able to use the walker, and that gave me a bit more mobility, because with the wheelchair, obviously, I had to depend on persons to take me to the bathroom, to take me out to the living room, and it was, a bit more difficult. Once I started using the walker, I think it was about 2 weeks after I came out of the hospital, and then I found myself being able to get up and hold on to the walker. I'm very determined. I used that walker for probably about 3 to 4 months, and then I was able to have a quad cane. And I was so excited to purchase that cane. I remember when my therapist told me, I think that you're strong enough to use a cane. I went straight to Caribbean Rehab that evening, and I bought this quad cane, and I named it Faith. And that cane was with me until about August last year. And I was traveling with my children to Florida, and I remember I purchased a new cane, and it was a nice pretty purple, and it could fold up and stuff like that, and I named that one Grace. And I used Grace for about 4 months after that. And I remember I was planning my 40th birthday party, and I told my mom, Grace isn't on the invitation list. I'm not taking Grace to this party. That meant that I had to do everything in my power to be able to hold my balance, be able to walk without off balancing, because in order to go to this party without the cane, I had to be able to do all that.
Yeah.
And that was my motivation then to, work a bit harder at the therapy, and I was able then to not get rid of Grace, but to be not so dependent on Grace.
What is life like now, more than a year later, having gone through all that you did, still having your amazing sons there with you, supporting you, loving you? What is life like now? What do you think of when you look back on the journey?
Life is awesome. I love life. Every single day I get up, I'm thankful for life. Because in the blink of an eye, it could have been gone. And one thing that I'm proud of is that I never asked God, why me? I never questioned God. And life has its challenges, but it's up to you to rise above those challenges. And I made that choice to rise above my challenges. And life is, I'm almost back to normal. I go to the beach. I have been driving from 6 weeks after I suffered that stroke. I took my sons to Florida. I go to picnics. I go to my fancy restaurants. Life has been lifing. As the young people would say, life has been lifing. I'm excited every single day for whatever challenges come. Whatever I have to go through, I always face it. I'm always positive. I give thanks in every single thing.
What words of encouragement do you have for other mothers who are watching this interview, who may have been experiencing challenges of their own and not being sure of whether they can make it or not? What encouragement do you have for them?
You are not alone. Lean on your support system. I think one of the problems that we have and why we feel so vulnerable is because we are accustomed being strong, and in our weakness we are afraid to lean on people. In my quiet days in the hospital, that was one of the things that kept me grounded. because I realized that in order for me to fight, in order for me to survive this, in order for me to outgrow this and overcome this, I needed to ask for help. I needed to lean on the people who are offering me help. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made. Even though I was going through the storm, I remember that I was still an anchor for my boys. And I leaned on the help that I was offered. And you don't have to be perfect to love your children. You don't have to be perfect to show up for your children. Whatever you can do, even in your weakness, your children will appreciate it. So even though you may be going through your battles, show up. Love your children. It doesn't have to be perfect.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said, Lateisha. And as we close out this interview, I want you to have the floor and take a moment to just express your own thanks to everybody who's been a part of your journey and who still continues to be a part of the journey. I want you to have the floor. It's yours.
To my family, my friends, my colleagues at the FSC, but most of all my children, Amari and Aiden. I did everything that I did for you. And I'm forever grateful for the support, the love, and even when I felt like giving up, the encouragement, the support, the love, I'm forever grateful. And if I had to go through this journey again, I would want to do it with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. A real story. This is real life. And oftentimes, we would want that life is simply a straight line. But we do have our valley experiences sometimes. But it's what we do when we're in the valley. And I, on behalf of my colleagues, both management and staff at the FSC, want to salute this young woman right here, this amazing mother, this beautiful sister and daughter. I just want to salute you because you deserve every flower that the garden has to offer. You're such an amazing person. And you know that this is not being said just because of camera, because we've had other opportunities where we've shared our personal thanks. And I want to say thank you, and thank you for being so bold to come to camera to share your story with the world. We don't know how far this will travel, but thank you so much, Lateisha. Continue to be strong, continue to be driven and determined, because I know that Aiden and Amari, they're looking on, and I know that they know that they have such an amazing mother in you.
Thank you.
Until our next conversation.
Thank you so much, Alicia.
You're welcome.
Bye.